The airline agent looked at me like I'd just asked her to fly me to Mars for free. "Sir, there's no ticket under your name. Are you sure you have the right confirmation number?" "I'm Nicholas Morrison. I'm 49 years old, and I was about to find out that my own company had just screwed me over in Barcelona airport. Let me back up. I'm not some fancy consultant who lives in business lounges. I'm the guy who's been keeping TechFlow systems running for 23 years, ever since I graduated college back in 2001. Senior infrastructure engineer. Basically, I'm the one who makes sure all those shiny presentations actually work when they hit the real world. For the past 18 months, my real world had been Eurologis Group, massive logistics operation across 15 European countries. We built them a supply chain platform that had to follow every rule from data protection to customs regulations across 47 warehouses. Not glamorous work, but the kind that keeps trucks moving and packages delivered. This Barcelona trip was supposed to be my swan song. Final rollout, final testing, then home to Chicago for the biggest moment of my life. I had an engagement ring tucked away in my carry-on and a house closing scheduled for next week. My girlfriend Jen, we'd been together 9 years, was 3 months pregnant. Surprise pregnancy at 44, but we were both over the moon about it. At 49, I was finally ready to stop living out of hotel rooms and start the family we'd been putting off. But my manager had different ideas. Gregory Walsh is 41 years old and everything I've learned to hate about modern management. He's all about data-driven decisions and lean operations. Took over our department 8 months ago and immediately started questioning everything I'd built over 2 decades. Where I saw necessary safety checks, he saw inefficiency. Where I documented everything thoroughly, he saw old-school thinking. The blow-up happened during our planning call for Barcelona. "I need 3 extra days here," I told him on Tuesday. "The European compliance stuff is trickier than we thought. If something breaks when I'm on a plane home, we could lose this whole contract." Greg leaned back with that smile that made me want to reach through the screen. "Nick, we can't keep extending deadlines because you're comfortable with the old way of doing things. We have monitoring tools. Other engineers can handle problems remotely." "Other engineers who've never been inside a European warehouse," I said. "Greg, I've been doing this since you were in high school. Trust me on this." "Wrong thing to say." "Look," he said, switching to that corporate voice managers use when they want to sound reasonable while being completely unreasonable. "I get that you're used to being the go-to guy, but we need processes that don't depend on one person being physically present. That's not how modern companies work." I stared at my laptop screen. 23 years of midnight emergency calls, weekend fixes, sleeping in airport chairs, the Y2K crisis I helped navigate when computers were supposed to crash worldwide. 3 major layoffs I'd survived, dozens of junior engineers I'd trained who were now running their own teams. "This isn't about my ego," I said. "This is about not losing a $3.2 million contract." "Decision's final," Greg replied. "Wrap up Friday, come home as scheduled. Finance is already asking questions about travel costs." That night I sent a detailed email to Isabella Rodriguez, our contact at Eurologis. Isabella and I went back to 2018 when we worked together on a project in Amsterdam. She knew my work, trusted my judgment, and actually understood the technical stuff better than most people at my own company. Her response came back fast. "Nick is absolutely right. We want him here until Wednesday. Eurologis will pay for any extra hotel nights if needed." I forwarded Isabella's email to Greg with a simple note. "Client supports the extension." Greg's reply the next morning was brutal in its brevity. "Finance denied extension. Stick to original dates. Start handover docs." I should have seen the writing on the wall, but I was buried in the actual work. Wednesday and Thursday flew by. Final testing, user training, compliance checks. The system was holding together, but barely. Monday's go-live was going to be touch and go. Friday afternoon, I shook hands with Isabella and her team. "Thank you for everything, Nick," she said. "Your preparation and documentation have been outstanding. Have a safe flight home." I grabbed a taxi to the airport feeling pretty good. The ring was safe in my bag. Jen was expecting me home by midnight. Our real estate agent had confirmed Sunday's house walkthrough. All the pieces were falling into place. Then I got to the check-in counter. "I'm sorry, sir," the agent said after typing my confirmation number for the 3rd time. "I'm not finding any active ticket under your name." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" "I have the confirmation right here." I showed her my phone with the original booking email. She nodded politely but kept typing. Yes, this shows the original reservation, but the return flight was canceled last night at 11:47 p.m. local time. 11:47 p.m. Barcelona time, that was 5:47 p.m. Chicago time, well after our office closed. Someone had logged in specifically to cancel my ticket. Canceled by who? I asked. She turned her screen slightly toward me, not enough to see everything but enough to read the note. Canceled by corporate travel account. Reason: traveler arranging own return transport. I felt like I'd been punched. I never said I'd arrange my own transport. This is a business trip. My company booked this. She looked sympathetic. Probably dealt with this before. I can put you on tonight's flight, but it would be a separate booking. Business class Barcelona to Chicago runs about $2,200. There was no way I could put that on my personal card. Jen and I had every penny tied up in our house down payment. I found a quiet corner and called our corporate EM5's travel desk. Hi, this is Nick Morrison. I'm at Barcelona airport and my return ticket got canceled without my knowledge. I need it fixed right now. The agent put me on hold for what felt like forever. When she came back, her voice was careful. Mr. Morrison, I see the cancellation was requested by Gregory Walsh. There's a note saying you would handle your own return and submit for reimbursement. I never agreed to that, I said. I understand, sir, but I can only reinstate tickets with manager approval. I hung up and immediately called Greg, straight to voicemail. Texted him, nothing. Called our operations director, voicemail. Even tried HR but got an auto response telling me to contact my manager. Perfect. Just perfect. I sat there watching other passengers board the flight I was supposed to be on. Families heading home, business travelers with their confirmed seats, people who trusted their companies to actually get them home. Meanwhile, I was stuck holding a useless confirmation email and a growing suspicion that this wasn't an accident. But here's the thing Greg forgot. Something I'd built into Eurologis's system 18 months ago when we were setting up their contractor management. See, European companies take contractor safety seriously. Like, really seriously. Under EU rules, if anything happens to an outside contractor while they're working on company business, the host company can face massive fines. That's why every single person visiting Eurologis facilities had to be booked through their integrated travel system. It wasn't just convenience, it was legal protection. Every booking change triggered automatic alerts to their legal team. I'd personally recommended that feature after seeing too many contractors get abandoned by their own companies. I opened my laptop and logged into the Eurologis contractor portal. There it was, my travel record, highlighted in angry red. Critical alert, contractor return transport, canceled by supplier, potential duty of care violation. Right there at the bottom was a button I'd suggested they add, escalate to legal team. For about 30 seconds, I stared at that button. Part of me thought maybe I should give TechFlow one more chance to fix this quietly. But then I remembered Greg's smug face during our last call, the deliberate after-hours cancellation, the assumption that I'd just figure it out because I always had before. I clicked the button. The automated response was instant. Eurologis legal team notified. Remain at current location. Do not arrange alternative transport. Contact within 2 hours. It took 45 minutes. Mr. Morrison, this is Maria Santos from Eurologis Legal. We've reviewed the duty of care alert about your canceled return flight. Can you confirm that TechFlow canceled your ticket without providing alternatives? Her voice was calm but all business. The kind of tone people use when they're already building a case. That's exactly what happened, I said. I have the airline's cancellation record, showing it came from our corporate account. Nobody told me anything. That's a serious breach under European contractor protection rules, she said. We're contacting TechFlow's executives immediately. Very important. Don't book anything yourself. That could complicate the legal situation. Understood. We'll have this resolved within 4 hours, Mr. Morrison. I'm sorry this happened to you. She wasn't kidding about the timeline. My phone rang 37 minutes later. Microsoft Teams call with 4 very unhappy faces. Our CEO, Chief Operating Officer Patricia Henderson, our Operations Director, and Greg. Greg looked like he'd seen a ghost. The CEO started talking before I could say anything. Nick, we just got a call from Eurologis Legal. They're treating this as a duty of care violation. We need to understand what happened here. My return flight was canceled at 11:47 p.m. Barcelona time last night, I said, keeping my voice level. The airline confirmed it came from our corporate account with a note that I'd arrange my own transport. I never agreed to that. The CEO looked straight at Greg. Is that accurate? Greg's voice was barely a whisper. There was some confusion about the arrangements. That's not what the logs show, I said. Eurologis has complete records of who canceled what and when. Their legal team already pulled everything. Patricia Henderson closed her eyes like she had a migraine coming on. Greg, do you realize what you've done? EU duty of care violations can hit us for up to 200,000 euros, plus potential criminal charges for abandoning a contractor. The CEO was frantically typing on his phone. Nick, we're booking you on the next flight tonight. First class, our account, no arguments. You'll have confirmation in 15 minutes. Thanks, I said. There's something else, the CEO continued. Eurologis formally requested that Gregory Walsh be removed from any EU contractor roles, effective immediately. They asked if you'd consider joining their team. That caught me off guard. Joining Eurologis? Director of EU Infrastructure Operations, based in Amsterdam with remote flexibility. They mentioned 85,000 euros plus a 25,000 euro signing bonus. Greg made a choking sound. They said, and I'm quoting here, that your 23 years of expertise and understanding of European compliance make you extremely valuable. Apparently, Isabella Rodriguez has been recommending you internally for months. I looked at Greg's pale face on my phone screen and felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Complete professional vindication. I'll definitely consider their offer, I said. The CEO nodded grimly. Given everything that's happened, I wouldn't blame you. We can discuss this when you're back. But I already knew I wasn't coming back. Not to work for people who'd strand me overseas over a budget line item. The new flight confirmation hit my inbox 12 minutes later. First class Barcelona to Chicago, departing 11:30 p.m. I walked to that gate with my engagement ring, still safe in my carry-on, and a job offer that was about to change my entire life. Sometimes the system you build to protect other people ends up protecting you too. Greg thought he was making a smart budget move. He thought I'd quietly book my own flight and let it slide because I always had before. He thought wrong. Greg was fired Monday morning. Not suspended, not reassigned, straight up terminated. The official reason was violation of contractor safety protocols, but word spread fast through the office about what really happened. Nobody wanted to work for a manager who'd abandoned his own people in foreign countries. I flew home first class that Friday night, slept maybe 2 hours total. Mostly I stared out the window thinking about everything that had led to this moment. Every corner Greg had cut, every warning he'd ignored, every time he'd dismissed my concerns because they didn't fit his quarterly budget targets. When I landed in Chicago, Jen was waiting at baggage claim. 5 months pregnant now, glowing, worried about me but trying not to show it. I told her everything during the drive home, the cancellation, the legal escalation, the job offer. She listened without interrupting, which is one of the many reasons I was about to marry her. So what are you thinking? She asked as we pulled into our driveway. I'm thinking Greg just handed me the best opportunity of my career, I said. Amsterdam? Amsterdam. Or wherever we want to live. They said remote flexibility. She smiled for the first time since I'd started the story. I've always wanted to see Europe. We closed on the house that Sunday. Beautiful place with a view of Lake Michigan. Perfect for raising kids. I proposed on our new back deck Tuesday evening with the ring I'd carried home from Barcelona. She said yes, obviously, and we started planning a small wedding for spring. But the real satisfaction came from watching TechFlow deal with the consequences. The EU penalty hit their books the next quarter. 165,000 euros, plus legal fees, plus the cost of finding someone to replace me mid-project. Not exactly small change for a company our size. Eurologis terminated their contract 3 months later and brought their infrastructure work in-house, with me running it. I accepted Eurologis's offer 2 weeks after getting home. The math was simple: 85,000 euros base salary plus 25,000 signing bonus versus staying at a company that would strand me overseas to save a few $100 on hotels. Not exactly a tough choice. The irony wasn't lost on anyone at TechFlow. The same European contractor protection system I'd helped design was the system that exposed Greg's decision to abandon me. The audit trails I'd built to be tamper-proof had captured every timestamp, every click, every decision. The legal framework I'd recommended to Eurologis gave them the tools to hold my own company accountable. Isabella called me personally the day after I accepted their offer. "Nick, I want you to know this wasn't some elaborate recruitment scheme," she said. "We've been discussing bringing you on since the Amsterdam project, but we never wanted to poach you while you were working for a partner company. And now? Now they've shown they don't deserve you," she said. What Greg did was unconscionable. In Europe, we don't treat contractors like disposable resources. She was right. The cultural difference was striking. At TechFlow, I was a cost center to be optimized. At Eurologis, I was a professional colleague to be respected. After 23 years of fighting for resources and recognition, the contrast was refreshing. My first day at Eurologis was surreal. Clean office in Amsterdam, competent colleagues who actually read my documentation, management that asked for my input instead of dismissing it. Isabella introduced me around as the engineer who designed our contractor safety protocols, not the expensive American consultant we had to hire. The work was challenging but satisfying. Expanding their compliance systems into the UK post-Brexit, designing new warehouse automation platforms, training local teams who genuinely wanted to learn. No more 3 a.m. emergency calls because someone had rushed a deployment without proper testing. Best of all, no more Greg. Word filtered back through industry connections about what happened at TechFlow after I left. Greg's termination sent shockwaves through the company. The EU penalty and lost contract triggered a comprehensive review of their project management practices. Several other managers who'd been cutting similar corners quietly updated their resumes. The new manager they brought in to replace Greg actually called me for advice about the Eurologis handover. Professional courtesy, but also a tacit admission that they'd screwed up badly. I helped where I could. No point in making the remaining engineers suffer for management's mistakes. Greg himself disappeared from the industry entirely. LinkedIn profile went dormant, conference speaking engagements canceled, networking events avoided. Turns out stranding contractors abroad leaves a mark on your professional reputation that's hard to scrub clean. Meanwhile, I was designing compliance systems for Eurologis's expansion into Scandinavia. Jen was 7 months pregnant, excited about our new adventure, already researching international schools in Amsterdam. We'd rented our Chicago house to one of the junior engineers I'd mentored. Good kid who deserved a break. The funniest part was the documentation. Remember how Greg always complained about my excessive record keeping? The same detailed logs and audit trails he thought were wasteful bureaucracy had preserved every piece of evidence needed to expose his decision, every email timestamp, every system access, every approval click. In the old days, this kind of thing would have been he said, she said, but modern systems don't lie. They capture everything, store everything, track everything. Greg forgot that in our industry, the digital paper trail never disappears. That's what 23 years of experience teaches you. Document everything. Build systems that protect people. Follow processes even when they seem inefficient. Because eventually, those same careful habits that annoyed impatient managers would save my career and hand me a better one. Sometimes people ask if I planned the whole thing, if I knew clicking that escalation button would destroy Greg's career and transform mine. Honest answer, no. I just wanted to get home to Jen and the life we were building together. But I'd spent over 2 decades building systems the right way, documenting everything, creating safeguards that protected contractors from exactly what Greg tried to do to me. When he decided to abandon me in Barcelona, he triggered every protection I'd carefully put in place. The thing about being thorough, about doing things right even when it seems like overkill, is that sometimes it takes decades to pay off. But when it does, it pays you back with interest. 6 months after Barcelona, I was sitting in Eurologis's Amsterdam headquarters designing compliance systems for their expansion into Norway and Sweden. Jen was 8 months pregnant, loving the European healthcare system, already making friends with other expat families. Our Chicago house was generating rental income that covered the mortgage plus some extra. Life was good, really good. But the best part was the validation. After 23 years of being told my documentation was excessive, my safety margins were wasteful, my processes were outdated, suddenly I was the guy everyone wanted to learn from. European companies understood that doing things right the first time costs less than fixing disasters later. Isabella had become more than a client contact. She was a genuine friend and mentor. During our monthly check-ins, she'd often mention how different things felt with proper infrastructure leadership. Your predecessor companies always sent us implementers, she told me during one of our coffee meetings. Smart people, but they'd build something and disappear. You build things that last, and you stick around to make sure they work. That's just how I was taught to do the job, I said. Exactly. And that's why you're here instead of there. The contrast with my old life at TechFlow was striking. No more emergency calls at 2 a.m. because someone had rushed a deployment. No more fighting for resources to do basic testing. No more managers who thought experience was just inefficiency with gray hair. My new team actually read my documentation. They asked questions when they didn't understand something instead of pretending they knew better. They allocated proper time for testing instead of cutting corners to hit arbitrary deadlines. It felt like stepping out of a dysfunction you'd gotten so used to that you forgot what normal looked like. The industry gossip about Greg's downfall continued trickling back through former colleagues. Turns out abandoning contractors abroad was just the tip of the iceberg. The investigation into his practices uncovered a pattern of cost-cutting decisions that put projects and people at risk. 3 other engineers had similar stories about being hung out to dry for budget reasons. None of them had my documentation habits, though. None of them had built the systems that could expose what happened to them. They'd suffered in silence and moved on, while I'd accidentally created the perfect trap for exactly the kind of manager Greg was. The audit trail that saved me wasn't some elaborate revenge plot. It was just good engineering. Build systems that work, document everything, create safeguards for edge cases. I'd been doing it the same way for 23 years because that's how you build things that don't break. Greg had forgotten that in our industry, everything leaves digital footprints. Every login, every change, every decision gets logged somewhere. The European companies I'd worked with understood this. They'd built entire compliance frameworks around audit trails and accountability. American companies like TechFlow were still catching up to that reality. They wanted to move fast and break things, but hadn't figured out how to protect themselves when the things they broke included people's careers and lives. Jen and I had the baby in March, a healthy girl we named Sophie. Dutch hospitals are incredible, by the way. Clean, efficient, nobody worried about insurance or billing. Just good medical care delivered by professionals who seem to actually enjoy their jobs. Holding my daughter for the first time, I thought about the life I was giving her. International perspective, quality education, healthcare that wouldn't bankrupt us. All because Greg had tried to save a few €100 on hotel rooms. Sometimes the best revenge is just living well. The wedding was small but perfect. Isabella and her husband flew in from Spain. A few former colleagues from TechFlow came, the ones who'd always supported my careful approach to engineering. Even my old mentor from the Y2K days made the trip. No one from management attended, obviously, but honestly, I preferred it that way. This was about celebrating the future, not relitigating the past. During the reception, Isabella pulled me aside for a toast. To Nick Morrison, she said, raising her glass. Who proved that doing the right thing, even when nobody's watching, eventually gets noticed by the people who matter. I still keep in touch with some people from TechFlow. The company survived the Eurologis debacle, but it changed them. New management, new policies, much more careful attention to contractor safety and employee treatment. Sometimes it takes a public embarrassment to force institutional change. The engineers I'd mentored over the years reached out regularly for advice. Several had moved on to better opportunities, inspired partly by seeing how my careful habits had paid off. It felt good to know that the documentation practices and safety-first thinking I'd tried to instill were spreading. Greg never contacted me. I heard through mutual connections that he'd left the industry entirely, started selling insurance or real estate or something completely different, probably for the best. Some people aren't cut out for jobs where other people's welfare depends on their decisions. Looking back now, 2 years later, the whole Barcelona incident feels like a turning point that was always meant to happen. Not because of fate or karma or anything mystical, but because systems have a way of protecting the people who build them properly. I'd spent 23 years creating digital paper trails, building safeguards, documenting everything because that's what good engineering requires. When Greg tried to abandon me, he triggered every protection I'd carefully put in place over 2 decades of methodical work. The logs didn't lie. The timestamps were immutable. The audit trail was complete. The system remembered everything, and it had a very long memory. That's the thing about building things right. Eventually, they protect you right back. Greg thought he could erase me with a few clicks at 11:47 p.m. on a Friday. He forgot that in the modern world, nothing really disappears, especially when the person you're trying to erase built the system that's watching.